Hello there, and welcome to this Sleepy Botanica. There's a plant so ordinary that most people have stepped over it hundreds of times without ever realizing what it carries. A plant that grows quietly between cracks in sidewalks, along the edges of gardens, in forgotten corners of fields where nothing else seems to matter. And yet, within its small, soft leaves lies a concentration of omega-3 fatty acids that rivals, and sometimes even exceeds, many cultivated crops designed specifically for nutrition. More than spinach, more than kale. In some cases, approaching levels found in certain seeds that are deliberately grown and marketed for their health benefits. But you are never told about it. Not because it doesn't work, not because it isn't studied, but because it doesn't fit the systems we've built around food. It grows too easily, too freely, too quietly. And perhaps that is why it was forgotten. For now, you don't need to remember its name. You don't need to analyze the numbers, or compare nutritional charts, or think about diets and outcomes. Tonight, this is not about optimizing your body. This is about something much softer, something slower, something that has been growing patiently without asking for attention. So take a gentle breath in, and as you breathe out, allow the pace of your thoughts to loosen just a little. There's nothing here that requires effort, only a story unfolding at the speed of nature itself. Imagine, for a moment, a low-growing plant spreading close to the ground. Its stems are tender, slightly reddish, branching outward in soft, quiet patterns. The leaves are thick, smooth, almost succulent, holding water in a way that suggests resilience rather than fragility. If you were to touch one, it would feel cool, slightly waxy, like something designed to endure sun, wind, and time. This plant has a name known to botanists as Portulaca oleracea, more commonly called purslane, a species that has been recorded in human diets for over 2,000 years. Used in ancient Greece, in traditional Chinese medicine, in Middle Eastern cuisine, and in countless indigenous food systems long before industrial agriculture ever defined what was valuable. Scientifically, purslane is remarkable. It contains high levels of alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid essential for human health. Studies have shown that fresh purslane leaves can contain between 300 to 400 milligrams of ALA per 100 grams, a concentration unusually high for a leafy green. In addition, it provides vitamin E, vitamin C, beta-carotene, magnesium, potassium, and a range of antioxidant compounds that help regulate cellular stress. It is also one of the few terrestrial plants known to contain measurable amounts of EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, typically associated with marine sources, a quiet anomaly growing in plain sight. But again, you don't need to hold on to any of that. Let the details drift, like distant constellations you don't need to name. What matters is something much simpler. This plant did not evolve to impress. It did not evolve to be packaged or branded or optimized for display. It evolved to survive, to spread gently across the soil, to store what it needed without excess, to offer without asking. And as you continue to breathe slowly and effortlessly, you might begin to notice that something in you is doing the same, softening, letting go, returning to a quieter rhythm. Because sometimes the most nourishing things are the ones that never asked to be seen. And sometimes the deepest forms of abundance are already here, waiting just beneath the surface, in the quiet, in the overlooked, in the spaces where nothing seems to be happening at all. If a plant can quietly contain more omega-3 than most leafy greens, then a simple question begins to form. Why was it never placed at the center of modern nutrition? Why did it never become a staple, displayed under bright lights, packaged and promoted as essential for health? The answer is not that purslane lacks value. The answer is that it does not behave in ways that modern systems reward. Purslane does not grow in uniform rows unless forced to. It spreads outward, low to the ground, following moisture, sunlight, and space rather than schedules. Its leaves are soft and delicate, which means they do not store well for long periods or travel easily across long distances. It does not ripen all at once. It does not produce identical shapes that fit neatly into standardized packaging. And because it grows so easily, often without irrigation or fertilizer, it does not create the same economic demand as crops that require constant input. In a system that values control, predictability, and scalability, these traits make it easy to ignore. And yet, from a scientific perspective, purslane continues to stand apart. It contains high levels of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, which is a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid essential for human physiology. In leafy vegetables, this level of concentration is unusual. Most greens contain only small traces, but purslane accumulates ALA within its tissues in a way that makes it nutritionally dense despite its small size. In addition, it provides vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, and a range of minerals such as magnesium and potassium, all contributing to cellular function and metabolic balance. What makes it even more interesting is how these nutrients are stored. Unlike seeds, where omega-3 is concentrated in oils, purslane integrates fatty acids directly into its cell structures. This means that when the plant is consumed fresh, the nutrients are already part of its living system, requiring no processing or extraction. At the same time, purslane demonstrates an unusual form of adaptability. It is capable of switching between different photosynthetic strategies depending on environmental conditions, allowing it to conserve water and continue growing in heat, drought, and poor soil. Where many cultivated crops begin to fail, purslane often continues, quietly maintaining its structure and function. But none of these qualities make it easy to sell. It does not wait for perfect conditions. It does not depend on constant care. It appears in places where the soil has been left alone long enough for something resilient to return. Sidewalk edges, abandoned lots, the borders of cultivated land. It grows where attention has faded. And perhaps that is part of the reason it remains overlooked. Because it does not compete for visibility. It does not demand recognition. It simply exists, continuing its quiet work whether it is noticed or not. As you continue to rest, there is no need to hold on to every detail. You do not need to remember the numbers or the terminology. You can let them pass slowly, like distant shapes moving across a dim horizon. What remains is something simpler, that not everything valuable announces itself, that not everything important is placed in front of you. Some things remain low, close to the ground, steady and sufficient, waiting in stillness. And as your breathing begins to slow, just slightly, you may start to sense that same quiet pattern within yourself, a rhythm that does not need urgency, a presence that does not need to prove anything. Because sometimes what sustains life most deeply is not what rises to the surface, but what stays patiently where it has always been. There's something quietly unusual about a plant that does not depend on stability. Most crops we rely on today were shaped over centuries to prefer predictability. They grow best when water arrives on time, when temperatures remain within a narrow range, when soil is carefully managed and protected from extremes. They are, in many ways, products of control. Purslane is not. It belongs to a different category of life, one that does not resist uncertainty, but instead adapts to it. Its physiology allows it to function across multiple environmental conditions, shifting how it captures and uses energy depending on what the surrounding world provides. When water is abundant, it grows quickly, spreading outward in soft green layers. When drought arrives, it slows, conserving moisture within its thick, succulent leaves. When heat intensifies, it continues, using metabolic pathways that reduce water loss while maintaining growth. This flexibility is not accidental. It is the result of evolutionary pressure across environments where survival depended on efficiency rather than abundance. In scientific terms, purslane is known to express characteristics of both C4 and CAM photosynthesis. These are specialized strategies that allow plants to manage carbon fixation and water use more effectively under stress. Very few plants demonstrate this level of metabolic adaptability in such a compact form. It allows purslane to remain productive where other crops begin to fail. But again, you do not need to follow every mechanism. You can simply notice what it means. This is a plant that does not panic when conditions change. It does not collapse when the environment becomes less predictable. It adjusts, slowly, quietly, without resistance. And, as you rest here, breathing gently, there may be something in that pattern that feels familiar. A sense that not everything needs to be forced. That not every shift requires urgency. That adaptation can happen in small, steady ways, without noise or strain. Purslane grows close to the ground, where temperatures are slightly more stable, where moisture lingers longer, where wind passes above rather than through. It chooses position carefully, not through intention, but through form. It stays low, and in doing so, it protects itself. There's a kind of wisdom in that. Not rising unnecessarily, not exposing itself to every change, remaining where balance is easier to maintain, and as your body begins to settle a little deeper, you might notice a similar instinct emerging, a quiet desire to lower, to soften, to release the need to stay elevated or alert. Because, like this plant, your system is capable of adjusting, of finding steadiness even when the world outside feels unpredictable. And you do not need to do anything to make that happen. It is already built into you. There is another reason purslane never became central to modern agriculture, and it has less to do with nutrition and more to do with behavior. It cannot be easily controlled. Once established, purslane does not remain confined to a single space. Its seeds are small and numerous, capable of spreading through soil, wind, and movement. Even fragments of the plant can regenerate under the right conditions. It does not depend on being replanted year after year. It returns on its own, following patterns that are not entirely predictable. In agricultural systems that rely on uniformity, this becomes a problem. Farmers are often trained to manage crops within strict boundaries, to plant, harvest, and clear land in cycles that maximize efficiency. A plant that appears outside those boundaries, that grows without invitation, is often labeled as a weed, not because it lacks value, but because it exists outside of control. Purslane has carried that label for generations. And yet, the distinction between a crop and a weed is not based on biology. It is based on perspective. The same plant that is removed from one field may be carefully cultivated in another. In some cultures, purslane is a valued vegetable, prepared fresh, cooked, or preserved. In others, it is pulled from the soil and discarded, seen as interference rather than nourishment. This shift in perception changes everything, because what we choose to recognize determines what we choose to keep. As you continue to breathe slowly, there is no need to decide what purslane should be. You can simply observe the pattern. A plant that grows freely is often misunderstood. A plant that does not follow expected rules is often dismissed. A plant that cannot be owned in the usual way is rarely prioritized. And yet it continues. It does not require permission. It does not wait for validation. It does not change its nature to fit expectations. It grows, quietly, steadily, without argument, and perhaps there's something deeply calming in that. The idea that not everything needs to fit. That not everything must be shaped to belong, that existence on its own can be enough. As your breathing slows further, you may begin to feel a gentle separation from the need to control every detail. A soft release of the tension that comes from trying to manage everything at once. Because, like this plant, there are parts of you that already know how to continue without constant direction. Parts that can rest. Parts that can simply be. And in that space, where effort begins to fade, something quieter can take its place. A rhythm that does not need to be forced. A presence that does not need to be managed. Just steady, continuous, and calm. Long before modern nutrition charts and agricultural systems began defining what was considered valuable, plants like purslane were already part of human life. Not as trends, not as superfoods, but as something far simpler. They were present. They were known. They were used without the need for explanation. Archaeological evidence suggests that Portulaca oleracea has been consumed for thousands of years, appearing in regions that span from the Mediterranean to Asia, from the Middle East to parts of Europe. In ancient Greece, it was described not only as food, but as a medicinal plant. Writers like Pliny the Elder recorded its properties, noting its cooling effect and its role in supporting the body during periods of heat and imbalance. In traditional Chinese medicine, purslane was used for its anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. It was prepared in decoctions, applied in treatments, and valued not because it was rare, but because it was reliable. And perhaps that is what makes its story different. It was never exotic, never distant, never difficult to obtain. It was always close, always within reach of those who knew how to recognize it. But as systems changed, as agriculture became more structured and centralized, knowledge like this began to shift. Crops were selected not only for their ability to nourish, but for their ability to be stored, transported, and standardized. Fields became more uniform. Supply chains became longer. And slowly, the plants that did not fit these patterns began to fade from common awareness, not because they disappeared, but because attention moved elsewhere. Purslane did not vanish. It continued to grow in the same quiet places it always had. Along pathways, in disturbed soil, in the margins of cultivated land. But fewer people recognized it. Fewer people understood what it offered. And over time, familiarity was replaced by absence. As you rest here, there is no need to follow every historical detail. You can let the timeline soften like a memory that no longer needs to be precise. What remains is something gentler. The understanding that knowledge does not always disappear completely. Sometimes it simply becomes quieter. It moves into the background, waiting for the moment when it might be noticed again. And as your breathing continues, slow and steady, you may begin to sense that same pattern within yourself. There are things you have not lost, only things you have not needed to remember until now. They are still there, calm, unchanged, patient, like a plant that continues to grow even when no one is looking. If you were to look closely at a single purslane leaf, it might seem almost too simple to be significant. Smooth, rounded, slightly thick, with a soft sheen that reflects light in a subtle way. Nothing about it demands attention. Nothing about it suggests complexity. And yet, within that small structure, there is a system of remarkable precision. Each leaf is designed to store water efficiently, allowing the plant to survive in dry conditions where thinner leaves would lose moisture too quickly. The outer surface reduces evaporation, while internal tissues maintain hydration over extended periods. This is not excess, it is balance. Inside, chloroplasts carry out photosynthesis, converting light into energy, sustaining growth without interruption. The plant regulates gas exchange through microscopic openings, adjusting in response to temperature and humidity. It is constantly responding, constantly adapting, without any visible effort. There is no urgency in the way it functions, no sudden movement, no dramatic change, only quiet, continuous adjustment. From a biochemical perspective, the compounds within the leaf are organized in a way that supports resilience. Antioxidants help manage oxidative stress. Fatty acids contribute to cellular integrity. Minerals support enzymatic processes that maintain internal stability. Everything works together. Not perfectly, but effectively. And as you continue to rest, you do not need to analyze any of this. You can simply notice the pattern. A small system operating without strain. A structure that holds what it needs, releases what it does not, and maintains itself without excess effort. There is something deeply calming in that, because in many ways your body is doing the same, right now, without instruction. Your breathing continues. Your heart moves steadily. Your cells adjust, repair, and regulate, all without requiring your attention. You do not have to manage it. You do not have to control it. It is already happening. And as that realization settles gently, you may begin to feel a deeper sense of ease, a quiet trust, that not everything depends on effort, that some processes are designed to carry you even when you let go, like a leaf that holds water through heat, like a plant that continues through change, steady, calm, uninterrupted. Beneath every purslane plant, there's a layer of soil that appears still, almost silent, as if nothing much is happening at all. But this quiet surface hides a network of activity that never truly stops. Roots extend gently into the ground, not forcing their way downward, but finding paths through spaces already available. They move around resistance rather than through it, adjusting direction in response to texture, moisture, and life. Purslane does not demand rich soil. It does not require carefully balanced nutrients or perfectly managed conditions. It grows in disturbed ground, in compacted spaces, in areas where other plants hesitate, and yet, as it grows, it begins to change the soil itself. Its roots help loosen what is hardened. Organic matter accumulates slowly around its base as leaves fall and decompose. Microorganisms begin to gather, drawn to the subtle exchange of sugars released by the roots. Over time, the soil becomes slightly more open, slightly more alive, slightly more capable of supporting other forms of life. This process is gradual. It does not happen in a single season. It does not transform the landscape in a dramatic way, but it continues, quietly, layer by layer. In ecological terms, this is part of what is known as soil regeneration, a slow rebuilding of structure and fertility driven by living systems rather than external inputs. Plants like purslane play a small but meaningful role in this process, not by dominating the environment, but by participating in it. They do not control the soil, they respond to it, and in responding, they contribute to its recovery. As you rest here, breathing gently, you do not need to visualize every detail beneath the surface. You can simply sense the idea that even in places that seem depleted, something can begin again. That change does not need to be immediate to be real. That quiet processes, repeated over time, can reshape what once felt fixed. Your own body follows similar patterns. Recovery does not always happen all at once. It unfolds gradually, often without notice. Small adjustments, small shifts, repeated again and again until something feels different. And like the soil beneath this plant, there may be parts of you that are already beginning to soften, already beginning to open, without needing to be pushed. There is no urgency in this, no expectation, only a quiet continuation, a gentle rebuilding. Purslane does not rush. If you were to watch it closely over time, you would notice that its growth does not follow the sharp, upward motion seen in many cultivated plants. It spreads outward, close to the earth, forming a soft network of stems and leaves that expand gradually, almost imperceptibly from one moment to the next. There is no single point where growth becomes obvious. No sudden transformation that draws attention. Instead, it unfolds through accumulation, through the steady addition of small changes that, over time, create something complete. This kind of growth is easy to overlook. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. And yet, it is consistent. From a biological perspective, this reflects an efficient allocation of energy. Purslane directs its resources toward maintaining stability while expanding slowly, ensuring that each new section of growth is supported before moving further. It does not overextend. It does not exhaust itself in pursuit of rapid expansion. It grows in balance, and as you continue to breathe, slowly and naturally, there may be something in that pattern that begins to resonate. The idea that not everything needs to happen quickly, that progress does not need to be visible to be real, that there is a rhythm, softer and steadier, that exists beneath the urgency of constant movement. Your breath follows that rhythm, in and out, without force, without effort, each cycle complete on its own. And just as the plant expands without strain, your body continues its own quiet processes. Muscles releasing tension, thoughts becoming less defined, awareness softening at the edges. There's nothing you need to push forward, nothing you need to complete. Only this slow, continuous unfolding. Like a plant that grows without hurry, like a rhythm that does not need to be controlled. Steady, gentle, always moving, even when it feels still. There is something unusual about the way purslane begins its life. Unlike many cultivated plants that depend on careful planting, measured spacing, and controlled conditions, purslane seeds do not wait for permission. They are small, almost dust-like, easily carried by wind, water, or movement across the soil. And once they find even the slightest opportunity, they begin. They do not require perfect timing. They do not need ideal preparation. A small crack in the ground, a patch of disturbed earth, a place where light can reach the surface, and that is enough. From a botanical perspective, this is a strategy of persistence. Purslane produces a large number of seeds, each with the potential to germinate under a wide range of conditions. Some sprout quickly, taking advantage of immediate moisture. Others remain dormant, waiting until the environment shifts in their favor. This staggered germination ensures that even if some seedlings fail, others will succeed later. It is not a strategy built on certainty. It is a strategy built on continuity. And because of this, purslane rarely disappears completely from a place once it has been established. It may fade for a season, become less visible, seem as though it is gone. But beneath the surface, within the soil, something remains, waiting. Not actively, not with intention, but simply by design. As you rest here, there's no need to imagine every detail of this process. You can let it remain soft, like something understood without needing to be seen clearly. What matters is the pattern. That life does not always depend on perfect conditions to begin. That growth can start from small, almost unnoticed openings. That not everything requires readiness in the way we often expect. And, as your breathing continues, slow and steady, you may begin to sense a similar idea within yourself. That you do not need to wait for everything to align. That not every moment needs to be prepared or controlled. Some things begin quietly, without announcement, without certainty. Just a small shift, a subtle opening, and then gently something continues, like a seed that does not wait for permission, like a process that unfolds on its own, steady, unforced, already in motion. There's a moment, often overlooked, when a plant moves from being something you see to something you experience. With purslane, that moment is quiet, almost understated. Its leaves do not carry the sharp bitterness of some greens, nor the strong sweetness of cultivated fruits. Instead, the taste arrives gently, with a subtle brightness, a faint tang that lingers just long enough to be noticed, and then fades. At first, it might seem simple. But like many things that are not designed to overwhelm, its complexity reveals itself slowly. When eaten fresh, purslane has a crispness that comes from its water-rich structure. The leaves hold moisture in a way that feels cooling, especially in warm environments. This is not accidental. Botanically, the plant's succulent nature allows it to retain hydration, and when consumed, that same property creates a sensory experience that feels refreshing rather than heavy. There is also a mild sourness, often compared to lemon, though softer and less defined. This comes in part from organic acids within the plant, including oxalic acid, which contributes to its slightly tart profile. In moderate amounts, this adds depth to the flavor without becoming overwhelming. But beyond taste, there is something else happening. The presence of omega-3 fatty acids, along with other lipophilic compounds, creates a subtle texture that is not immediately obvious. It is not oily in the way seeds are, but there is a softness, a smoothness that becomes more noticeable as you pay attention. It lingers quietly beneath the surface of the initial bite. And yet, this is not a flavor designed to demand attention. It does not compete. It does not dominate. It exists gently, allowing itself to be experienced only if the moment is slow enough to notice it. As you rest here, there is no need to imagine the exact taste. You can let the idea remain soft, like something familiar but distant. What matters is the way it unfolds, gradually, without urgency, without pressure to be fully understood at once. And as your breathing continues, calm and even, you may begin to sense a similar rhythm within your own awareness. Not everything needs to be intense to be meaningful. Not everything needs to be immediate to be real. Some experiences deepen over time, revealing more only when there is space for them to do so. Purslane has been described across cultures in different ways. In Mediterranean cuisine, it is added to salads, its slight tang balancing richer ingredients. In parts of the Middle East, it is mixed with yogurt, creating a cooling contrast that complements the warmth of the climate. In traditional preparations, it is sometimes cooked lightly, which softens its texture and reduces its acidity, allowing a different layer of flavor to emerge. Heat changes it. Not dramatically, but enough. The leaves become more tender. The brightness becomes smoother. The overall experience shifts from crisp and fresh to soft and grounded. This transformation reflects something deeper about the plant itself. It does not resist change. It adapts to it. And in doing so, it offers different qualities depending on how it is approached. As you continue to settle, you may begin to feel a similar softening within your body, muscles releasing without effort, thoughts becoming less defined, the sharp edges of attention beginning to blur into something more fluid. There is no need to hold on to any single sensation. You can let each moment pass into the next, like taste that fades gently after it is noticed, like a plant that offers quietly, without insistence. And in that quiet offering, there is something deeply calming, something that does not ask to be analyzed, only experienced, slowly, softly, and then just as gently allowed to dissolve. If you were to observe purslane over the course of a full day, you might begin to notice something subtle in the way it responds to light. Not in the dramatic, visible turning of large sunflowers, but in small, almost imperceptible adjustments. Leaves shift their angle. Stems lean slightly outward. Surfaces orient themselves to receive just enough sunlight, but not more than necessary. It is not a movement you would notice in a single moment. It reveals itself only through time. From a physiological perspective, this behavior reflects a quiet efficiency. Plants regulate light absorption carefully, balancing the need for photosynthesis with the risk of excessive exposure. Too little light limits energy production. Too much can create stress within the plant's cells, leading to damage that must then be repaired. Purslane manages this balance with a kind of calm precision. Its leaves, thick and slightly curved, reduce direct exposure during intense sunlight while still allowing enough energy to be captured. Its low growth habit helps maintain a more stable microclimate, where temperature and moisture fluctuate less dramatically than in open air. Even its internal processes adjust, modulating activity depending on external conditions. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced. It responds only as much as it needs to. And then it rests within that balance. As you continue to breathe slowly, there may be something in this pattern that begins to settle within you. The idea that not every opportunity needs to be taken fully, that not every moment requires maximum effort, that there is a natural rhythm between engagement and rest, between taking in and letting go. Your breath reflects this. Inhale, receiving what is needed. Exhale, releasing what is not. No strain, no urgency, just a steady exchange. And as your awareness softens, you may begin to notice how your body is already following this rhythm. Small adjustments happening without your attention, subtle shifts in posture, a gradual release of tension in areas that were once tight. Like leaves turning gently toward light, your system is constantly recalibrating, finding positions that require less effort, less resistance. You do not need to guide it. It is already happening. Purslane does not compete for the brightest space. It does not stretch upward aggressively to outgrow its surroundings. It remains where it is, adjusting its form to make use of what is available. There is a kind of quiet intelligence in that, not seeking more than necessary, not resisting what cannot be changed, simply working with what is present. And as your thoughts begin to slow, becoming less defined, you may begin to feel that same quiet intelligence within yourself. A sense that you do not need to push, that you do not need to reach for anything beyond this moment. That what is here is already enough, like light that falls gently across the surface of a leaf, like a plant that follows it, slowly without effort, steady, calm, unfolding at its own pace. There's a quiet detail within purslane that is easy to miss, something that reveals itself only when you look a little closer at its structure. Its leaves are not thin or fragile like many common greens. They are thick, smooth, and slightly rounded, holding water within their tissues in a way that feels deliberate. This is not excess. It is storage, measured and efficient. From a botanical perspective, purslane is considered a succulent. This means it has developed specialized tissues that allow it to retain water over extended periods. In environments where rainfall is unpredictable or where soil dries quickly, this ability becomes essential. Water is absorbed when available, held within the plant cells, and used slowly over time. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. The plant does not depend on constant supply. It prepares quietly, storing what it needs before scarcity arrives. And when the environment becomes dry, when other plants begin to wilt or retreat, purslane remains steady. Its leaves maintain their structure. Its internal systems continue functioning. It does not appear strained. It does not signal distress in obvious ways. It simply continues. This ability is connected not only to its physical form, but also to its internal regulation. Purslane adjusts how it opens and closes its stomata, the tiny pores on the surface of its leaves. During hotter periods, it reduces water loss by limiting gas exchange, conserving what it has already stored. During cooler, more stable conditions, it allows these processes to resume more fully. It is always balancing, always responding, without urgency. As you rest here, breathing slowly, you may begin to notice a similar possibility within yourself. The idea that not everything needs to be used immediately, that not every moment requires full output, that there is value in holding, in conserving, in allowing energy to remain where it is needed. Your body already understands this. Even now, systems are adjusting, heart rate slowing, muscles releasing, breath becoming more efficient, requiring less effort with each cycle. You are not losing energy. You are redistributing it. Like water held within a leaf, your body knows how to store, how to sustain, how to continue without constant input. There's no need to force rest. There's no need to create calm. It is already unfolding, quietly, beneath your awareness. Purslane does not panic when resources become limited. It does not overextend itself when conditions are favorable. It maintains a steady internal state, adjusting gently to what is available. And as your thoughts begin to soften further, you may begin to feel that same steadiness emerging. A sense that you can hold what you need, that you can let go of what is unnecessary, that you do not need to rush through this moment. Only remain, like water resting inside a leaf. Still, balanced, enough. If you were to return to a place where purslane once appeared, you might notice something subtle over time. What was once a single, small cluster may have become a wider patch, spreading gently across the ground. Not in a sudden or aggressive way, but through a gradual extension, each stem reaching outward, each node capable of forming new growth. It does not expand in straight lines. It does not follow a rigid pattern. Instead, it moves in soft, irregular shapes, adapting to the space available, filling gaps where light touches the soil, withdrawing slightly where conditions are less favorable. Its growth is not directed toward dominance, but toward presence. From a botanical standpoint, this method of spreading increases resilience. By distributing itself across a wider area, the plant reduces the risk of total loss. If one section is disturbed, another remains. If part of the soil becomes too dry, another area may still hold moisture. It is not dependent on a single point of survival. It exists as a network rather than a single structure. And because of this, its growth feels less like expansion and more like continuation. Each new section is not separate from the original. It is an extension of it, a quiet unfolding. As you continue to rest, there is no need to picture every detail. You can simply feel the idea of something spreading slowly, without pressure, without urgency. Growth that does not require force. Presence that does not demand attention. And as your breathing becomes softer, more even, you may begin to notice a similar pattern within your own awareness. Thoughts no longer moving in sharp lines, but softening at the edges, blending into one another. Sensations spreading gently through the body, not intense, not overwhelming, just present. There's no need to direct this, no need to organize it. It can simply move as it does, like stems extending across open ground, like a pattern that forms on its own. Purslane does not rush to cover space. It does not compete for height or visibility. It remains low, close to the earth, expanding only as much as conditions allow. And in doing so, it creates a kind of quiet stability, a presence that is steady rather than dramatic. There is something deeply calming in that. The idea that growth does not have to be fast to be real, that expansion does not have to be visible to be meaningful, that sometimes the most enduring forms of life are the ones that move slowly, adapting as they go without drawing attention to themselves. As your body settles further, you may begin to feel that same quiet expansion, not outward into space, but inward into stillness. A soft widening of calm, a gentle extension of rest, nothing forced, nothing required, just a slow, continuous presence, like a plant that spreads without effort, like a rhythm that continues whether it is noticed or not. At first glance, purslane can appear delicate. Its stems are soft, almost translucent in certain light, and its leaves can be pressed gently between fingers without resistance. It does not have the rigid structure of woody plants, nor the protective thickness of bark or fiber. It seems in many ways vulnerable, but this appearance can be misleading, because resilience does not always look strong. From a biological perspective, the softness of purslane is part of its advantage. Its tissues are flexible, able to bend without breaking, to adjust rather than resist. When exposed to pressure, whether from wind, heat, or physical disturbance, it does not hold rigidly in place. It yields slightly, absorbing the force instead of opposing it. This quality reduces damage. It allows the plant to continue functioning even when conditions are less than ideal. And if part of it is broken, something else remains. New growth can emerge from nodes along the stem. Roots can form again if contact with soil is restored. It does not depend on a single point of strength. Its survival is distributed across its structure. In this way, what appears fragile is, in fact, adaptable. What seems soft is, in reality, durable. As you rest here, there is no need to analyze this in detail. You can simply notice the contrast. That strength does not always come from rigidity. That endurance does not always come from resistance. Sometimes it comes from the ability to adjust, to soften, to move with what is happening, rather than against it. And as your breathing continues, slow and steady, you may begin to feel that same possibility within your own body. A gentle release of tension, muscles no longer holding as tightly, thoughts no longer pushing as forcefully. There's no need to stay rigid, no need to maintain a fixed position. You can allow yourself to soften, just slightly. And in that softening, something else becomes available. A kind of quiet resilience, one that does not require effort, one that does not need to prove itself. Purslane does not protect itself by becoming hard. It protects itself by remaining flexible, by distributing its strength across many small points rather than concentrating it in one. And as your awareness drifts further, becoming lighter, less focused, you may begin to feel that same distribution within yourself. Not holding everything in one place, not carrying everything at once, letting things spread out, letting them become lighter, more manageable, more distant, like tension dissolving into space, like a structure that holds without tightening, steady, soft, unbroken, even in its gentlest form. There are moments in the life of a plant that are easy to observe. New leaves appearing, stems extending, flowers opening toward the light. These are the visible signs, the ones that draw attention, the ones that suggest something is happening. But much of growth does not look like this. Much of it happens in stillness. If you were to watch purslane closely over hours or even days, there would be long periods where nothing seems to change. The leaves remain in place. The stems hold their shape. The plant appears almost suspended, as if it is paused. But beneath that stillness, processes continue. Cells divide slowly. Water moves through internal pathways. Nutrients are absorbed, transformed, and redistributed. Energy captured from light is stored, used, balanced. None of this is visible, yet all of it is necessary. Growth is not constant movement. It is also quiet preparation. From a scientific perspective, this reflects the balance between anabolic and maintenance processes within living systems. Not every moment is dedicated to expansion. Some are dedicated to stabilization, to repair, to ensuring that what has already formed can continue to function. Without these quieter phases, visible growth would not be possible. And yet, because they do not stand out, they are often overlooked. As you continue to rest, breathing slowly, you may begin to notice a similar pattern within yourself. There are moments when nothing seems to be happening. Moments where progress is not visible, where change is not obvious. And yet, something continues. Your body is still regulating. Your mind is still processing. Your system is still adjusting, even if you are not aware of it. There's no need to force movement in these moments. No need to create change. Sometimes stillness is part of the process. Purslane does not rush through its quieter phases. It does not try to make its growth visible at all times. It allows these periods to exist, knowing in its own biological way that they are necessary. And as your thoughts begin to slow further, becoming softer, less defined, you may begin to feel more comfortable within that stillness, not needing to fill it, not needing to move through it, just allowing it to be, like a pause between breaths, like a space between waves, calm, uninterrupted, holding everything it needs within it. And in that quiet space, something subtle begins to deepen, a sense of rest that does not depend on activity, a feeling of ease that does not require change, just presence, soft, steady, enough. Every plant lives in a quiet relationship with light. It depends on it, responds to it, adjusts itself around it. But there is something subtle in the way purslane engages with this relationship. Something that reflects not only how it gathers energy, but how it conserves it. Light is not used constantly. Even in full daylight, there are rhythms within the plant that regulate how much energy is processed at any given time. Photosynthesis rises and falls, influenced by temperature, hydration, and internal signaling. When conditions are ideal, the plant absorbs and converts light efficiently. When conditions shift, it reduces activity, preventing imbalance. This is not hesitation, it is regulation. From a physiological perspective, this balance protects the plant from stress. Excess light, when not properly managed, can lead to the production of reactive oxygen species, which can damage cellular structures. To prevent this, plants like purslane adjust their internal processes, dissipating excess energy and maintaining equilibrium. It does not take more than it can use. It does not force itself to operate at maximum capacity at all times. It moves within limits, and those limits are not restrictive. They are protective. As you rest here, breathing gently, there may be something in this pattern that begins to feel familiar. The idea that not every moment requires full engagement. That it is not necessary to remain constantly active, constantly processing, constantly responding. There is space for balance. Your breath reflects this naturally. Each inhale brings in what is needed. Each exhale releases what is not. There is no effort to extend either one beyond its natural length. No attempt to hold more than is comfortable. Just a steady rhythm, rising and falling without strain. And, as your awareness softens, you may begin to notice how your body is already regulating itself in similar ways. Heart rate adjusting, muscles releasing tension, neural activity slowing, shifting toward a state that requires less energy, less effort. You do not need to control this. It is already happening. Purslane does not seek constant exposure to light. It does not stretch endlessly upward in search of more. It remains close to the ground, where intensity is moderated, where balance is easier to maintain. There is a quiet wisdom in that. Not needing to reach beyond what is sustainable. Not needing to take more than can be held. Simply existing within a range that supports continuity. And as your thoughts begin to drift, becoming lighter, less structured, you may begin to feel that same sense of balance settling within you. A gentle alignment, a quiet equilibrium, nothing excessive, nothing lacking, just enough. Like light filtered through leaves, like breath moving without effort. Like a system that knows, without thinking, how to remain in balance. Within each small leaf of purslane, there's a record of adaptation that stretches far beyond what can be seen. Not memory in the way humans understand it, not something stored as thoughts or experiences, but a different kind of memory, one written into structure, into chemistry, into the way the plant responds to its environment without needing to learn each time from the beginning. Every cell carries instructions shaped by generations of survival, patterns that determine how water is stored, how light is processed, how stress is managed. These patterns are not conscious, yet they are precise. They allow the plant to respond quickly, efficiently, without hesitation. From a biological perspective, this is encoded in genetic expression and regulatory systems that adjust based on environmental signals. When conditions change, certain genes are activated, others become less active, guiding the plant's response in a way that appears seamless. It does not need to decide. It does not need to remember actively. The response is already present. This is what allows purslane to thrive in unpredictable environments. It does not rely on trial and error in the way we might imagine. It carries forward what has already been refined. And yet this process is quiet, invisible. It does not announce itself. As you rest here, breathing slowly, there's no need to understand the full complexity of these systems. You can simply notice the idea that within living things there are patterns that do not need to be consciously held in order to function. That within you there are also processes shaped over time, responses that emerge without effort, adjustments that happen without needing to be directed. Your body remembers how to breathe without being told. It remembers how to rest, how to recover, how to maintain balance even when your attention moves elsewhere. This is not something you need to manage. It is something you can allow. Purslane does not question its response to the environment. It does not second-guess the way it adjusts to heat, to dryness, to change. It simply follows the patterns already present within it. And as your awareness softens further, you may begin to feel a gentle trust in that idea, that not everything requires conscious control, that not every response needs to be guided. Some things unfold because they are already built into the system, like a quiet memory carried in every cell, steady, reliable, unseen but always active. And as you continue to drift, letting your thoughts become lighter, more distant, you can allow that same sense of quiet continuity to remain with you. Nothing to hold, nothing to force. Just a system that continues calmly on its own. When the light fades and evening settles across the ground, something changes in the visible world. Colors soften, edges become less defined, movement slows, and for many plants this marks a pause, a quiet reduction in activity as photosynthesis comes to an end. But for purslane, night is not an absence. It is a transition. Within its cells, processes continue, even without sunlight. Energy stored during the day is gradually used, redistributed, and conserved. Sugars produced through photosynthesis are transported to areas that need support. Repair mechanisms become more active, addressing small imbalances that occurred during exposure to heat and light. Nothing stops. It simply becomes quieter. From a physiological perspective, this shift reflects the plant's internal rhythm, often described as a circadian cycle. Like many living organisms, purslane follows patterns that align with day and night, adjusting its activity not only based on immediate conditions, but also on time itself. Enzymatic processes change, metabolic pathways shift. The plant moves from active energy capture to maintenance and stabilization. This is not rest in the sense of inactivity. It is rest in the sense of restoration, and it happens without effort, without awareness, without interruption. As you continue to rest here, breathing slowly, you may begin to sense a similar transition within yourself. The day, with all its movement and attention, begins to recede. Thoughts that once felt sharp start to soften. The need to respond, to process, to remain alert, begins to fade. There is no need to hold on to it. You can let it pass, like light disappearing beyond the horizon. Your body understands this rhythm. As evening approaches, systems begin to adjust. Hormonal signals shift. Neural activity slows. The brain begins to move toward patterns associated with rest, preparing for deeper states of sleep. This is not something you need to control. It is already happening. Purslane does not resist the night. It does not attempt to continue as if nothing has changed. It adjusts naturally, allowing a different set of processes to take over. There is a quiet acceptance in that, a willingness to move with the cycle rather than against it. And as your awareness continues to drift, becoming less focused, more fluid, you may begin to feel that same acceptance within yourself. A gentle release of the day, a soft transition into something slower, something deeper, like a system that continues even without light, like a rhythm that does not depend on effort, steady, calm, unfolding into rest. Beneath the still surface of a purslane leaf, there is a continuous exchange of molecules working together to maintain balance. Not in dramatic bursts, not in visible reactions, but in slow, steady processes that protect the plant from subtle forms of stress. Every moment, even in calm conditions, cells are exposed to small amounts of oxidative pressure. This is a natural part of metabolism. As energy is produced and used, reactive molecules are formed, and if left unregulated, they can begin to affect cellular structures. Purslane, like many resilient plants, carries within it a network of compounds that help manage this process. Antioxidants such as vitamin C, vitamin E, and various polyphenols move through its tissues, interacting with reactive molecules, stabilizing them, preventing imbalance. These compounds do not eliminate activity. They do not stop processes from occurring. Instead, they maintain a steady environment in which those processes can continue safely. It is not about stopping change. It is about guiding it. From a biochemical perspective, this balance is essential. Without it, cells would accumulate damage over time. With it, systems remain functional, adaptable, capable of continuing without disruption. And yet, all of this happens quietly. There is no signal that announces it, no visible sign that protection is taking place. It simply continues beneath the surface. As you rest here, breathing gently, you may begin to sense a similar process within yourself. Your body is not still in the way it appears. There are systems working continuously, regulating, adjusting, protecting. Antioxidant pathways, immune responses, cellular repair mechanisms, all functioning without requiring your attention. You do not need to activate them. They are already active. There is something deeply calming in that realization. The idea that not everything depends on conscious effort. That even in rest, even in stillness, there is quiet support. Purslane does not need to be aware of its own protection. It does not need to direct these processes. They are part of its structure, part of the way it exists. And as your thoughts begin to soften further, becoming less defined, you may begin to feel that same sense of quiet protection within yourself. A subtle stability. A gentle maintenance. Nothing urgent. Nothing forced. Just a continuous balancing happening in the background. Like chemistry that moves without being seen. Like systems that hold everything in place. Steady, unnoticed, always there. And, as you drift a little deeper, you can allow yourself to rest within that. Supported, without needing to do anything at all. There are times when something long ignored begins to reappear, not suddenly, not all at once, but gradually, as if it had always been there, waiting just beyond attention. Purslane has followed this pattern across history. It never truly disappeared. It simply moved out of focus. In recent decades, researchers and small-scale growers have begun to look at it again, not as a weed, but as a plant with unusual nutritional and ecological value. Studies have revisited its composition, confirming what earlier cultures already understood in simpler ways. Its omega-3 content, its antioxidant profile, its adaptability under stress, all of these qualities have been measured, described, and documented with modern tools. But even with this renewed attention, purslane has not returned in a dramatic way. It has not become dominant. It has not replaced the crops that fill large fields and supply global markets. Instead, it has reappeared quietly, in farmers' markets, in small gardens, in conversations among those who are willing to look more closely at what grows outside conventional systems. This kind of return is different. It is not driven by urgency. It is not pushed by demand. It unfolds slowly as awareness shifts. From an ecological perspective, this reflects a broader pattern. Plants that are highly adaptable, that require fewer inputs, that can grow in marginal conditions, often remain at the edges until conditions change enough for their value to be recognized again. They do not force their way back into prominence. They remain present, waiting for the environment, both physical and cultural, to make space for them. Purslane does not need to be rediscovered in order to exist. It only needs to be noticed. As you rest here, breathing slowly and evenly, there may be something in this pattern that begins to feel familiar. The idea that not everything lost is truly gone, that some things remain just outside awareness, waiting for the moment when attention softens enough to return to them. You do not need to search for them actively. You do not need to force recognition. Sometimes they come back on their own, gently, without pressure, like a memory that returns when the mind is quiet. Your body understands this in its own way. There are states of rest, of calm, of balance, that do not need to be created from nothing. They are already part of your system, part of your natural rhythm. They may feel distant at times, harder to access during moments of activity or tension, but they are not gone. They are simply waiting. And as your awareness continues to drift, becoming softer, less defined, you may begin to feel that gentle return, a sense of ease that does not require effort, a calm that does not need to be held. Just something that emerges quietly as everything else begins to settle, like a plant that was always there, growing low, unnoticed, and then, slowly, seen again. If you were to kneel down and look closely at a patch of purslane, you might begin to notice that it is never truly alone. At first, it appears simple, just a low mat of green resting against the soil. But with a little more attention, a wider system begins to reveal itself, one that forms naturally without planning, without control. Small insects move between its leaves, using the shade it provides to avoid direct sunlight. Moisture lingers beneath its canopy, creating a slightly cooler microenvironment where tiny organisms can survive more easily. The soil beneath it, once exposed and dry, begins to hold together more gently, protected from wind and erosion. Purslane does not create this system intentionally. It does not design or direct what gathers around it. And yet, by simply existing in its own form, it alters the conditions of the space it occupies. From an ecological perspective, this is known as facilitation, where one organism indirectly supports the presence of others by modifying the environment. The plant reduces temperature fluctuations at the soil surface. It limits water loss. It creates structure where there was none before. And in doing so, it allows other forms of life to settle, to persist, to interact. This is not dominance. It is quiet influence. And what is most remarkable is that it requires no additional effort. Purslane does not expand its energy to maintain this system. It does not take on more than it needs. The ecosystem forms as a byproduct of its natural state. As you rest here, breathing slowly, you may begin to sense a similar pattern. The idea that not everything you contribute needs to be deliberate, that simply being present in a steady and grounded way can create space for other things to exist. There's no need to control every outcome, no need to shape every interaction. Sometimes influence happens quietly without direction. Your body reflects this in subtle ways. The warmth you carry, the rhythm of your breath, the calm that begins to settle. All of these can extend outward, affecting the environment around you in ways that are not immediately visible. You do not need to amplify it. You do not need to measure it. It is already happening. Purslane does not announce its presence to the ecosystem it supports. It does not compete for attention. It remains low, steady, and consistent. And through that consistency, it becomes part of something larger. And as your awareness softens further, drifting gently, you may begin to feel that same sense of connection, not as something you need to create, but as something that already exists. A quiet relationship with your surroundings. A subtle integration. Nothing separate. Nothing forced. Just a continuous, gentle exchange, like a small plant resting against the soil, like a system forming around stillness. Calm, balanced, complete without needing to expand. If you were to follow the growth of the purslane over days and weeks, you might notice something that feels different from the pace of most cultivated crops. There is no clear moment when it seems to accelerate dramatically. No defined stage where it suddenly transforms. Instead, it continues in a steady, almost unremarkable way, expanding slowly, adjusting constantly, without drawing attention to its progress. This kind of growth is difficult to measure in the way modern systems prefer. There are no sharp milestones, no precise markers that signal completion. And because of this, it can feel as though nothing significant is happening. But that impression is not accurate. From a biological standpoint, growth is continuous, even when it is not obvious. Cells divide, structures expand, resources are redistributed. The plant is always in motion at a microscopic level, even when it appears still. The absence of visible change does not mean the absence of process. It simply means the process is quiet. And as you rest here, breathing gently, you may begin to notice a similar relationship with time within yourself. The way moments begin to stretch slightly. The way thoughts slow, becoming less frequent, less defined. The way the need to track time, to measure it, to move through it efficiently, begins to soften. There's no need to know how long you have been here. No need to anticipate what comes next. This moment does not need to lead anywhere. It can simply exist. Purslane does not measure its growth. It does not track how much it has expanded or how quickly it has progressed. It continues, responding only to what is present, adjusting in real time without reference to an external timeline. There is something deeply calming in that. The idea that not everything needs to be scheduled, that not every process needs to be optimized, that there is a rhythm that exists outside of measurement, one that unfolds naturally when it is allowed to. As your breathing becomes even softer, more even, you may begin to feel that same release from structure. Time becoming less defined. Moments blending into one another. awareness shifting from sequence to presence. There is nowhere you needed to arrive, nothing you need to complete. Only this steady continuation, like a plant that grows without counting the days, like a process that does not depend on clocks, just movement, quiet and constant, unfolding in its own way. And in that space, something begins to deepen, a sense of rest that is not limited by time, a calm that does not need to end, just a gentle, continuous unfolding, soft, unmeasured, enough. If you were to gently lift a small section of purslane from the soil, you might notice something unexpected about its roots. They are not deep in the way large plants anchor themselves. They do not drive forcefully downward in search of stability. Instead, they remain relatively shallow, spreading lightly through the upper layers of soil, forming connections that are subtle but effective. At first, this might seem like a limitation, but it is not. From a botanical perspective, shallow root systems can be highly adaptive in environments where nutrients and moisture are concentrated near the surface. Purslane does not invest energy into penetrating deeply into the ground. Instead, it focuses on efficiency, drawing what it needs from where it is most available. Its roots move through spaces that already exist, rather than forcing new ones. They follow the natural structure of the soil. They respond rather than resist. And because of this, they remain flexible. They can detach and regrow. They can extend outward as the plant spreads. They can form new points of contact wherever the stem touches the ground. This creates a network that is not dependent on a single anchor, but supported by many small connections. It holds itself in place without gripping tightly. And as you rest here, breathing slowly, there may be something in that idea that begins to settle within you. The possibility that stability does not require tension. That being grounded does not mean holding on with force. That support can come from multiple gentle points rather than one fixed position. Your body reflects this in quiet ways. You are not held together by a single structure, but by a system of interconnected processes. Muscles, bones, connective tissues, all working together to create balance. And when tension is reduced, when effort is softened, that balance often becomes easier to maintain. You do not need to grip to remain steady. You do not need to hold tightly to stay in place. You can allow yourself to rest into support that is already there. Purslane does not cling to the soil in fear of being moved. It simply connects where it can, trusting that those connections are enough. And as your awareness drifts further, becoming softer, less focused, you may begin to feel that same sense of gentle grounding, a stability that does not require effort, a connection that does not need to be forced, just a quiet holding, light, steady, enough to remain. There are moments when the environment becomes less forgiving. Heat intensifies. Water becomes scarce. The surface of the soil dries and many plants begin to show visible signs of strain. Leaves wilt. Growth slows. Some retreat entirely, conserving what little they have left. Purslane responds differently. It does not resist these conditions in the way we might expect. It does not attempt to maintain the same level of activity when resources are limited. Instead, it adjusts. Its metabolism shifts. Water loss is reduced. Growth becomes slower, more measured. Energy is conserved. redirected toward maintaining essential functions rather than expanding outward. This is not a reaction driven by urgency. It is a response guided by balance. From a physiological standpoint, this ability to adjust internal processes in response to external stress is what allows purslane to endure. It does not fight the environment. It works with it, reducing strain where possible, maintaining function where necessary. And because of this, it remains, even when conditions are not ideal. As you continue to rest, breathing gently, you may begin to sense a similar possibility within yourself. The idea that not every challenge needs to be resisted, that not every change requires effort to overcome. Sometimes adjustment is enough. Sometimes reducing intensity is what allows continuity. Your body already understands this. When energy is low, systems slow down. When stress is present, certain processes become more focused, more selective. You are constantly adjusting, often without realizing it, finding ways to continue without exhausting what you have. You do not need to push through everything. You do not need to maintain the same pace at all times. There is space for adaptation. There is space for gentleness. Purslane does not hold on to a fixed state. It does not insist on growing at the same rate regardless of conditions. It allows itself to change, to become quieter when necessary, to conserve rather than expand. And as your thoughts begin to fade, becoming lighter, more distant, you may begin to feel that same quiet endurance within yourself. A steadiness that does not depend on resistance. A continuation that does not require force. Just a soft, ongoing presence. Like a plant that remains, even in dry soil. Like a system that adjusts without strain. Calm. Flexible. Unbroken. If you observe a place where purslane has grown over multiple seasons, you may begin to notice a quiet repetition. It does not appear just once and disappear. It returns, not always in the exact same shape, not always in the exact same density, but with a consistency that feels almost certain. Year after year, small clusters emerge again. Not because someone replanted them, not because they were carefully maintained, but because something remained beneath the surface. From a biological perspective, this continuity is supported by seed persistence. Purslane produces seeds that can remain viable in the soil for extended periods, sometimes years, waiting for the right combination of light, temperature, and moisture to trigger germination. Even when the plant is no longer visible, its presence has not ended. It has simply shifted into a different form. Dormancy, in this context, is not absence. It is potential, held quietly without urgency. And when conditions align, that potential becomes visible again. This pattern of disappearance and return is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It happens gradually, often unnoticed, unless someone is paying close attention. And even then, it feels natural, expected, as though the plant never truly left. As you rest here, breathing slowly, you may begin to sense a similar pattern within yourself. The idea that not everything that fades is gone. That some things move below the surface, becoming quieter, less visible, but still present in a different way. Energy can return. Calm can return. Clarity can return. Not because they were recreated, but because they were always there, waiting for the right conditions. There is no need to force this process, no need to search for it. It unfolds on its own. Like seeds resting in the soil, your system holds possibilities that do not need constant attention. They do not require effort to remain. They are simply there, part of a deeper continuity that exists beyond immediate awareness. Purslane does not worry about whether it will return. It does not track its cycles or anticipate its next appearance. It follows a pattern that is already built into its existence. And, as your thoughts become softer, more distant, you may begin to feel that same quiet reassurance that nothing essential is lost, that what matters most has a way of continuing even when it is not visible, like growth that pauses and resumes, like a presence that fades and returns, steady, reliable, always part of something ongoing. There is a moment, often difficult to define, when something shifts from being clearly present to barely noticeable. With purslane, this transition is subtle. One day, the leaves are visible, resting against the soil, catching light in a soft, muted way. And then, gradually, they become less distinct. Not gone, just less apparent. The edges blur into the surrounding ground. The color blends with other forms of life. The structure softens into the background until it feels as though the plant has disappeared. But it has not. From an ecological perspective, this is part of a continuous cycle. Plants emerge, grow, recede, and return, not as separate events, but as overlapping phases within a larger system. There is no clear boundary where presence ends and absence begins, only a gradual shift. And because of this, disappearance is not a final state. It is simply a change in visibility. As you continue to breathe slowly, you may begin to notice a similar soft boundary within your own awareness. Thoughts that were once clear begin to fade. Sensations that felt defined become more diffuse. Attention loosens, no longer holding on to specific details. There is no sharp moment where this happens. It unfolds gradually, almost unnoticed. And in that transition, something else begins to emerge. A quieter state. A softer form of presence. One that doesn't rely on clarity or focus. Purslane does not resist this shift. It does not attempt to remain visible at all times. It allows itself to blend into its surroundings when conditions change, becoming part of the background rather than standing apart from it. There is a kind of ease in that, the ability to move between being seen and unseen without effort, to exist without needing to be defined. And as your awareness continues to drift, becoming lighter, less structured, you may begin to feel that same soft blending within yourself. The boundaries between thoughts becoming less distinct. The sense of self becoming less fixed. Not disappearing. Just softening. Like a shape dissolving into shadow. Like a plant fading gently into the soil. Still there, but no longer needing to be noticed. Calm, quiet, at rest within its own presence. There is a quiet efficiency in the way purslane uses energy. It does not grow rapidly in short bursts, exhausting its resources in a single direction. It does not stretch aggressively toward light or expand beyond what it can sustain. Instead, it moves in a measured way, distributing energy carefully across its structure. From a biological perspective, this reflects a principle found throughout living systems. Energy is not simply acquired, it is managed. Every process within the plant, from photosynthesis to cellular repair, requires balance. Too much activity in one area can create instability in another. Too little activity can slow growth and limit function. Purslane maintains this balance by regulating how and where energy is used. When conditions are favorable, it grows, but not excessively. When conditions become more limited, it reduces its activity, conserving what it has without shutting down completely. It does not shift abruptly between extremes. It remains within a range, and within that range it continues. As you rest here, breathing slowly, there may be something in this pattern that begins to feel calming. The idea that not every moment requires full energy, that it is not necessary to give everything at once, that there is value in steady, sustainable movement. Your body already understands this. Even now, it is adjusting how energy is used. Muscles that are not needed begin to release. Systems that were active during the day begin to quiet. The brain reduces unnecessary activity, moving toward patterns that require less energy to maintain. You are not losing anything. You are conserving. You are redistributing. Like a plant that continues without excess, your system is finding a state that is easier to sustain. There's no need to push beyond that. No need to increase effort. You can remain within this gentle rhythm. Purslane does not attempt to become something it is not. It does not try to grow faster than its structure allows. It does not compete for more than it needs. It remains consistent. And as your thoughts soften further, becoming less structured, you may begin to feel that same consistency within yourself. A steady presence. A quiet flow of energy that does not need to be intensified. Just enough to continue, just enough to remain. Calm, balanced, without excess. In many environments, plants compete for space, for light, for nutrients. They grow taller, extend further, and develop structures that allow them to outpace others. This competition shapes much of what we see in forests and fields, where height and speed often determine survival. Purslane follows a different path. It does not compete in the same way. It does not grow tall to reach light above others. It does not attempt to overshadow neighboring plants. Instead, it stays low, occupying a space that is often left unused, where direct competition is reduced. From an ecological perspective, this is a form of niche adaptation. Rather than entering into direct competition, Purslane positions itself in an environment where it can function without conflict. It uses what is available without needing to take it from others. This approach reduces stress. It allows continuity without struggle, and it creates a kind of quiet coexistence. As you continue to rest, breathing gently, you may begin to sense how different this feels. The idea of not needing to compete, not needing to compare, not needing to measure your position against anything else. There is space for simply existing, without pressure, without urgency. Your body responds to this absence of competition. Tension decreases. Breath becomes smoother. The constant evaluation of what needs to be done begins to fade. There is no requirement to move ahead. No need to keep up. Only this moment, steady and sufficient. Purslane does not define itself in relation to other plants. It does not adjust its growth to surpass or dominate. It remains within its own pattern, following its own structure, continuing at its own pace. And, as your awareness drifts further, becoming softer, less focused, you may begin to feel that same sense of independence within yourself, a release from comparison, a quiet acceptance of where you are, not needing to change it, not needing to improve it, just allowing it to be, like a plant that grows without competing, like a system that continues without pressure, calm, undisturbed, at ease within its own rhythm. If you were to observe a purslane leaf in soft daylight, you might notice how it receives light without appearing to capture it too tightly. The surface reflects just enough, absorbs just enough, and allows the rest to pass across it. There is no sense of grasping, no sign of excess accumulation. From a physiological perspective, this reflects a balance between absorption and protection. Light is essential for photosynthesis, but too much can overwhelm the internal systems of a plant. Purslane manages this by regulating how energy is processed, ensuring that what is taken in can be used efficiently without creating stress. It does not try to hold everything. It takes what it needs, and then it lets the rest go. This pattern is quiet, continuous, and precise. As you rest here, breathing slowly, you may begin to notice how this idea settles within your own awareness. The possibility that not everything needs to be held on to, that not every thought needs to remain, that not every sensation requires attention. Your mind, like the surface of a leaf, can receive experiences without needing to keep them all. A thought arises, it is noticed, and then, gently, it can pass. There is no need to follow it, no need to analyze it, no need to hold it in place. Purslane does not store light beyond what it can use. It does not attempt to capture more than it can process. It allows energy to move through its system in a way that remains balanced. And as your breathing becomes softer, more even, you may begin to feel that same gentle release. Thoughts passing more easily, awareness becoming lighter, the need to hold on to anything beginning to fade. There's nothing you need to keep, nothing you need to carry forward. Only this moment, arriving, and then slowly dissolving, like light resting briefly on a leaf, and then moving on, soft, unheld, free to pass. There's a point in every living system where intake becomes complete, a moment where what has been gathered is sufficient, where additional input is no longer necessary. In plants, this is not a conscious decision, but a regulated state, a balance between what is available and what can be used. Purslane reaches this state quietly. When water is sufficient, it does not continue to absorb endlessly. When light has been processed, it does not force additional activity. Its internal systems adjust, signaling that what is present is enough to sustain function. From a biological perspective, this is homeostasis, the maintenance of internal stability through continuous adjustment. It is not a fixed state, but a dynamic balance, shifting gently in response to changing conditions. Nothing is held beyond what is needed. Nothing is taken beyond what can be supported. And as you continue to rest, breathing gently, you may begin to sense a similar signal within yourself. A quiet awareness that this moment is enough, that you do not need to add anything, do not need to reach for anything, do not need to complete anything. Your body already reflects this balance. Breath moving in and out without effort. Heart maintaining its rhythm. Systems adjusting naturally without instruction. There's nothing missing, nothing required. Purslane does not seek more once it has enough. It does not continue beyond what its structure can hold. It remains within a state that supports continuity, not excess, and as your thoughts become softer, less defined, you may begin to feel that same quiet sufficiency. A sense of completion that does not depend on achievement. A calm that does not require confirmation, just a gentle recognition that this is enough, this breath, this moment, this quiet space, like a plant resting within balance, like a system that needs nothing more, still, complete, at ease. As the cycle of the day continues to fade, there is a gradual shift not only in the environment, but within the plant itself. Purslane, like all living organisms, follows rhythms that extend beyond visible growth. When light diminishes and temperature softens, its processes begin to slow, not abruptly, but in a gentle descent. This slowing is not a shutdown. It is a transition. From a physiological perspective, metabolic activity decreases as external stimuli become less intense. Photosynthesis reduces, energy consumption becomes more measured, and internal processes begin to favor maintenance over expansion. The plant moves from outward activity into inward balance. There is no resistance in this change, no attempt to continue at the same pace, only a quiet adjustment. As you rest here, breathing slowly, you may begin to feel a similar descent within yourself. The day's momentum loosens. The need to remain alert softens. Thoughts that once felt structured begin to drift, losing their edges, becoming less defined. There's no need to hold on to them, no need to complete them. They can fade naturally, like light dissolving into evening. Your body understands this rhythm. Neural activity begins to shift toward slower wave patterns. Muscles release tension that was held unconsciously. Breath becomes deeper, more even, requiring less effort with each cycle. You are not forcing rest. You are entering it. Purslane does not resist the slowing of its processes. It does not attempt to maintain daytime intensity when conditions no longer support it. It allows itself to move inward, to conserve, to prepare for deeper stillness. And as your awareness continues to soften, you may begin to feel that same inward movement. A gentle withdrawal from external focus, a quiet settling into internal space. Nothing to do, nothing to maintain, only a gradual descent, like a plant closing its activity with the fading of light, like a system returning to calm, slow, steady, uninterrupted. There is a subtle boundary, not always clearly defined, where active thinking begins to give way to something softer. It is not a sudden shift. It does not happen all at once. Instead, thoughts begin to lose their structure, becoming less linear, less connected, more fluid. This is the edge, the place where awareness begins to drift. From a neurological perspective, this transition reflects a movement from beta wave activity, associated with focused thinking, toward alpha and theta patterns, which are linked to relaxation and early stages of sleep. The brain does not stop functioning. It simply changes how it organizes activity. Connections become looser. Processing becomes less rigid. And as you rest here, breathing gently, you may begin to notice this shift happening within you. Thoughts appearing, but not fully forming. Images that arise briefly, then fade. A sense of movement that does not require direction. There's no need to follow any of it. No need to make sense of it. It can simply unfold. Purslane, in its own way, reflects a similar transition. As external activity decreases, its internal processes become quieter, less outwardly driven, more focused on maintaining stability rather than producing change. It does not stop. It softens, and as your awareness continues to drift, becoming lighter, more diffuse, you may begin to feel that same softening within yourself. The boundaries between thoughts becoming less clear, the sense of time becoming less defined, the need to remain aware beginning to fade. There is nothing to hold on to here, nothing to keep in place, only a gentle movement toward stillness, like a current that slows as it reaches calm water, like a leaf settling onto the surface without resistance. You do not need to guide this. You do not need to understand it. It is already happening, thought by thought, breath by breath, softening, dissolving, until what remains is no longer structured thinking, but something quieter, something deeper, a space where rest begins to take form. There comes a point where awareness no longer holds its usual shape. Not fully gone, not entirely present, but somewhere in between. A soft drifting where attention loosens its grip on structure and experience becomes less defined. This is not a loss. It is a transition. From a neurological perspective, this state reflects deeper theta activity, where the brain begins to move away from external processing and into internal rhythms associated with early sleep. Sensory input becomes less dominant. Internal imagery may appear briefly, then dissolve. The boundaries between thought, sensation, and memory begin to blur. Nothing is fixed. Everything becomes fluid. As you rest here, breathing slowly and evenly, you may begin to feel yourself entering this space. Thoughts no longer needing to be completed. Awareness no longer needing to stay focused. A soft drifting, where each moment gently replaces the one before it, without effort, without direction. There is no need to follow anything, no need to stay with any single idea. It is enough to let everything pass. Purslane, in its own quiet way, reflects this same movement. As night deepens, its internal systems continue, but at a level that is no longer outwardly visible. Processes become slower, more internal, less defined by interaction with the environment. It does not stop. It simply moves beyond what can be seen. And, as your awareness continues to drift, becoming lighter, less structured, you may begin to feel that same movement within yourself. A gradual release of clarity, a softening of boundaries, a quiet transition into something that does not require attention. There's nothing to hold, nothing to return to, only this gentle drifting, like a current that carries without resistance, like a leaf moving across still water, slow, effortless, uncontained. At a certain depth of rest, everything begins to lose its sharpness. Not in a way that feels unclear or confusing, but in a way that feels gentle. Edges soften, distinctions fade. The need to separate one thing from another begins to disappear. This is the beginning of deeper stillness. From a physiological perspective, the body continues to move toward a state of reduced activity. Heart rate slows further. Muscles release more completely. Breathing becomes deeper, slower, more rhythmic. The brain shifts further into patterns associated with early stages of sleep, where conscious awareness is no longer dominant. There's no effort in this. It happens naturally. As you continue to breathe, softly and steadily, you may begin to feel this softness spreading. Not as a single sensation, but as a gradual change. Tension dissolving, thoughts fading, awareness becoming lighter. There's nothing to define, nothing to organize, only a gentle, continuous softening. Purslane, resting in the quiet of night, reflects this same state. Its activity is no longer directed outward. It is no longer interacting actively with light or responding to external variation. It exists in a balanced internal rhythm, maintaining itself without visible movement. Still, but not inactive. Calm, but not empty. And as your awareness continues to drift, becoming less structured, you may begin to feel that same quiet presence within yourself. A state where nothing needs to be clear, nothing needs to be understood, only experienced, softly, without effort, like a surface that no longer reflects sharp light, but holds a gentle glow, like a space where everything blends into calm, even, quiet, at rest. There is a stage in rest where the sense of separation begins to fade. Not completely, not abruptly, but gradually, as if the lines that once defined everything are no longer necessary. The distinction between body and space softens. The awareness of position becomes less precise. Even the sense of time begins to loosen, no longer moving in clear sequence. This is not confusion, it is simplification. From a neurological perspective, this transition reflects a deeper movement into low-frequency brain activity, where external orientation is reduced and internal rhythms take precedence. The brain no longer prioritizes detailed mapping of the environment. Instead, it allows perception to become more diffuse, more integrated, less segmented. Everything becomes less separate, more continuous. As you rest here, breathing slowly and evenly, you may begin to feel this soft dissolving within your own experience, the edges of your body becoming less defined. The awareness of where one part ends and another begins becoming less important. A sense of being held within a wider space, rather than contained within a fixed form. There's no need to follow this, no need to understand it. It happens naturally as tension releases and the system moves toward deeper rest. Purslane, resting against the soil, reflects a similar quiet integration. Its structure is distinct, yet it blends into its environment. Its roots extend into the ground. Its leaves rest against the surface. Its presence becomes part of the landscape, rather than separate from it. There's no boundary that needs to be maintained, only a gentle merging. And as your awareness continues to drift, becoming softer, more open, you may begin to feel that same merging within yourself. No longer needing to define where you are, no longer needing to hold a fixed sense of position, just a quiet presence, extending gently into stillness, like a form dissolving into space, like a boundary that is no longer required, calm, continuous, unbroken. Beneath all conscious awareness, beneath every thought and sensation, there is a rhythm that continues without interruption. It is not something you usually notice. It does not draw attention. But it is always there, steady and consistent, maintaining the foundation of your experience. This rhythm is not created by effort. It exists on its own. From a physiological perspective, this includes the autonomic processes that regulate breathing, heart rate, and internal balance. Even as conscious awareness fades, these systems continue, adjusting continuously to maintain stability. The body does not need direction. It follows patterns that are deeply established, refined over time. Purslane reflects this same quiet continuity. Even in complete stillness, even in the absence of light, its internal systems continue. Cells maintain their structure. Energy is redistributed. Small adjustments happen constantly, ensuring that the plant remains stable without needing external input. It does not stop. It does not pause. It simply continues, quietly. As you rest here, breathing gently, you may begin to sense that same rhythm within yourself, not as something you need to control, but as something you can allow. Your breath moves on its own, in and out, slow, even. Your heart continues, steady, uninterrupted. There's nothing you need to maintain, nothing you need to hold in place. This rhythm is already carrying you, and as your awareness softens further, becoming less defined, you may begin to feel yourself resting within that rhythm. Not separate from it, not observing it, but part of it. A gentle movement that does not require attention. A quiet continuity that does not need to be understood. Just something that is. Always present, always steady. Like a current that flows beneath the surface. Like a system that continues, even when everything else becomes still. Calm, deep, unchanging. There's a point in rest where effort no longer has a place. Not because something has been completed, not because a goal has been reached, but because the system no longer needs to hold anything together in the way it once did. Muscles release fully. Breath becomes slower, softer, almost effortless. Thoughts no longer form in complete patterns. They appear briefly, then dissolve before they can take shape. From a physiological perspective, this reflects the body entering deeper stages of rest, where parasympathetic activity becomes dominant. The nervous system shifts away from alertness and toward restoration. Signals that once maintained tension begin to quiet. Processes that support recovery begin to take over. Nothing is forced. Nothing is directed. It happens on its own. As you rest here, breathing slowly, you may begin to feel this letting go spreading gently through your body, not as a single moment, but as a gradual release. Areas that once held tension begin to soften. Places that felt active begin to settle. Even the need to notice these changes begins to fade. There's nothing to track, nothing to observe, only a quiet unfolding. Purslane, resting fully into the night, reflects this same state. Its outward activity has already faded. It no longer interacts with light. It no longer adjusts to immediate changes. It remains in a state of internal balance, where everything that needs to continue does so quietly, without interruption. There is no effort in this, only continuation. And, as your awareness becomes lighter, more distant, you may begin to feel that same sense of release within yourself. A letting go that does not require intention. A softness that spreads without direction. You do not need to hold on to anything, not your thoughts, not your awareness, not even this moment. Everything can be allowed to drift, like tension dissolving into stillness, like movement settling into calm, slow, gentle, complete in its own quiet way. At a certain depth, rest no longer feels like something you are entering. It becomes something you are already within. The transition is so gradual that it is difficult to notice exactly when it happened. Awareness becomes softer. Time becomes less clear. The sense of being separate from the moment begins to fade. From a neurological perspective, this reflects the progression toward deeper sleep stages, where conscious thought is no longer dominant. Brain activity slows further, shifting into patterns that support restoration and integration. External awareness diminishes. Internal processes continue. You are no longer guiding anything, you are being carried. As you continue to breathe gently and evenly, you may begin to feel this sense of being held within rest. No effort, no direction, just a quiet presence. Purslane, resting beneath the night, exists in this same continuity. It does not mark the transition between states. It does not recognize when activity ends and rest begins. It simply moves through its cycle, seamlessly, without interruption. There is no boundary, only flow. And as your awareness continues to fade, becoming lighter, more diffuse, you may begin to feel that same flow within yourself. A gentle drifting, a soft continuation, nothing beginning, nothing ending, just a quiet movement into deeper rest, like a current that carries without resistance, like a space that holds without effort. You do not need to stay present. You do not need to follow anything further. Everything can soften. Everything can fade, slowly, naturally, until what remains is no longer awareness as you know it, but something quieter, something deeper, something that does not need to be named. There is a depth of rest where nothing needs to change anymore. Not because everything has stopped, but because everything has settled into a state that no longer asks for adjustment. The body continues, the systems continue, but they do so in a way that feels completely stable, completely held. Breath becomes so soft, it almost disappears into the background. The body feels lighter, as if it is no longer carrying its own weight. Thoughts no longer form in recognizable patterns. They do not need to. From a physiological perspective, this reflects the deeper stages of sleep, where brain activity moves into slow-wave patterns. These are the states associated with restoration, with cellular repair, with the rebalancing of systems that have been active throughout the day. Conscious awareness is no longer required. The body and brain continue their work without it. Nothing is missing in this state. Nothing is needed. As you drift here, there's no need to follow any idea, no need to stay connected to any thought. Even the sense of listening begins to fade, becoming softer, more distant, like something that is no longer necessary to hold on to. Purslane, resting fully into the quiet of night, reflects this same stillness. It is no longer responding actively to the environment. It is no longer adjusting moment by moment. It exists in a stable, continuous state, where all processes are balanced, where nothing needs to be added or removed. It is simply there. And as your awareness fades further, becoming lighter and more distant, you may begin to feel that same stillness within yourself. Not as something you are trying to reach, but as something you are already inside. A space where nothing needs to move. Nothing needs to be done. Only a quiet, steady presence, like the ground holding everything above it, like the night holding everything within it. Deep, still, complete. There's no clear ending here, no moment where something finishes. Only a gentle continuation, the kind that does not need to be marked. Breath continues, slow and soft. The body remains at ease, fully released. Awareness fades into something quieter, something that no longer needs to be defined. From this point, sleep does not begin as a separate event. It simply unfolds. From a biological perspective, the transition into sleep is not a switch, but a progression. Neural activity continues to slow. Systems continue to adjust, and consciousness gradually gives way to deeper states that support restoration. There is no sharp boundary, only a soft transition. Purslane, resting beneath the quiet of night, remains a part of this same continuous rhythm. It does not stop existing as it moves into stillness. It does not mark the passage from activity to rest. It simply continues in a different form, in a quieter way, and you can do the same. There's nothing you need to hold on to now. No need to stay aware. No need to follow any words. Everything can begin to fade, gently, naturally, like a sound becoming softer with distance, like light dimming at the end of the day. You are safe here. There's nothing required of you, nothing expected, only rest, deep, uninterrupted. And as everything continues to soften, you can allow yourself to drift further without effort, without resistance, carried quietly into sleep. Drifting, softly, further and further. You are safe now. There's nothing you need to hold. Your body is already resting. Your breath is already slowing, in and out, soft and steady. Let everything become a little quieter, a little softer. Any thought that appears can gently pass. You do not need to follow it. Any feeling that lingers can slowly fade. You do not need to keep it. You are allowed to rest, completely. Drift away, gently, drift away, like a leaf settling on still water, like the night wrapping softly around the earth. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, just this quiet, this calm, drifting, softly, further and further and further.